Tonight, we explore a tragedy that unfolded on a cold Christmas Eve in 2019, a night meant for warmth, family, and the holiday spirit. Instead, it became the setting for an unthinkable crime. This is the story of Kevin Bacon, a 25-year-old who vanished after seeking companionship through a dating app, and of Mark Latunski, the man ultimately found responsible for Kevin's horrifying end. Viewer discretion is advised. This story contains graphic details of violence, and it is not suitable for all audiences. The holiday season has an unmistakable magic. Lights twinkle in windows, families gather for feasts, and an air of excitement follows each snowflake that touches the ground. Yet for some, December can bring a deep sense of loneliness. Lost amid the holiday parties and family gatherings, many turn to social media and dating apps in hopes of finding a last-minute spark of connection. In 2019, one such individual was Kevin Bacon, a 25-year-old hairdresser living in Swartz Creek, Michigan. It was Christmas Eve, and while most people prepared to celebrate with their families, Kevin opened the Grindr app. He hoped for a bit of company, or maybe just to stave off holiday blues. Kevin Bacon, his name evoking a certain familiarity due to the famous actor, was known by friends and family as a big ball of light. He had a bright sense of humor and a warmth that drew people closer. As a talented hairdresser, Kevin's passion for style and creativity was evident in his bold hair colors and ever-changing looks. His friends recall his confidence and kindness. Michelle Myers, Kevin's roommate, would later recount conversations about life, relationships, and the joys and anxieties of being a young LGBTQ+ person in a smaller town. Swartz Creek, located in Genesee County, Michigan, was a modest community. He found acceptance there, but like many in the LGBTQ+ community, Kevin also looked to apps like Grindr to expand his social circle. For the Bacon family, the holiday season was always cherished. Kevin, having come out to his family, had found supportive parents who accepted him wholly. Still, it was not out of character for Kevin to go off on holiday outings or last-minute get-togethers with friends or potential dates. And so, when he didn't return on Christmas Eve, there was some initial hope that perhaps he'd just decided to spend the night elsewhere. No one could have anticipated what truly happened to him. At the other end of that Grindr connection was 50-year-old Mark Latunski. If anyone was trying to piece together the puzzle of Mark's life before December 2019, they would have found conflicting snapshots. By all appearances, Latunski's credentials were impressive. A trained chemist, he had once held jobs where he earned well over $100,000 a year. He was a married father of 4 children with his first wife. When that marriage ended, he later married a man. During his arrest, his second spouse expressed bewilderment, stating he never believed Latunski would harm him. Alarming incidents involving Mark Latunski had already begun to surface just weeks before Kevin Bacon's disappearance. In October 2019, a 48-year-old man named James Carlson placed a frantic call to 911. He had traveled from New York to Michigan to meet someone for a sexual encounter, someone he had connected with online. Carlson claimed that after arriving he found himself chained in Latunski's basement. He managed to free himself using a butcher knife, and fled into the night. Fortunately, he survived, but no significant charges stuck at the time. Then came another bizarre incident. A neighbor saw a man covered in blood pounding on his door, begging for help, crying out that someone wanted to harm him. Moments later, Mark Latunski appeared. The police arrived soon after, but again, no arrest was made. The man was treated for injuries, and the story seemed to fade away into a strange, unresolved footnote. One wonders, had authorities intervened more decisively, would Kevin Bacon's tragic fate have been avoided? Hindsight may be 20/20, but it's impossible not to question whether these near misses could have saved Kevin's life. It's December 24, 2019, Christmas Eve. Around 5:20 p.m., Kevin Bacon says goodbye to his roommate, Michelle Myers, telling her that he might be out for a while. There's a sense of excitement mixed with holiday cheer in the air. Perhaps Kevin thinks this evening could be the start of a new connection. Why not? It's Christmas Eve, after all. Less than an hour later, Michelle receives a text from Kevin. A brief update that he's not sure what time he'll be back. That's the last message she would ever get from him. As Christmas morning dawns, Kevin's parents notice his absence. Initially, they try calling and texting, no response. Concern turns to fear. By midday, panic sets in, and they file a missing person report. The police respond swiftly, scouring social media, tracing calls, and eventually discovering Kevin's car, wallet, and cell phone left behind in a store parking lot. The only clue, it seems, is the link to his last online conversation, on Grindr, leading them to the address of Mark Latunski. In a small rural area of Bennington Township, Michigan, a police cruiser arrives at Mark Latunski's home on December 27, 2019. The property is quiet, snow undisturbed except for footprints leading to a dimly lit doorway. Officers knock. Surprisingly, Latunski answers and allows them inside. The tension in the air must have been palpable. With cautious steps, officers begin to search the premises. They approach the basement, stepping down the creaking staircase, uncertain of what they might find. Within minutes, their worst fears are confirmed. Kevin Bacon's lifeless body hangs upside down from the ceiling, mutilated in ways too graphic to detail fully here. Later reports would reveal that Latunski admitted to killing Kevin, dismembering him, and even cannibalizing parts of his body. In one night, the world for Kevin's family changed forever, and for the police officers who witnessed the grisly scene, the horrifying memory would likely never leave them. Forensic experts who study cannibalistic murders often note a chilling distinction. While many killers driven by psychosis may lash out in rage or overkill, the act of cannibalism is typically more planned, more deliberate, often revealing a psychosexual dimension. It's not simply an explosion of violence, but something calculated.
Cannibalism can be seen as a form of ultimate possession. There's a psychological aspect where the perpetrator may feel that, by consuming their victim, they are merging with or destroying them completely, says Dr. a psychiatrist who has studied violent offenders.
Mark Latunski's mental health history was no secret. He'd been diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses, any one of which might severely impair judgment if left untreated. Yet was that enough to absolve him of criminal responsibility? The courts had to decide if he was legally insane, a high threshold that requires showing he could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime. By the time he was arrested for Kevin Bacon's murder, Latunski claimed to be part of a royal lineage, giving himself grand titles. He carried delusions that went beyond mere fantasy. But was this truly psychosis, or was it a conveniently constructed defense to avoid accountability? The grisly details of Kevin Bacon's murder sent shockwaves through Michigan and beyond. As news broke about the manner of his death, the public outcry intensified. LGBTQ+ advocates urged caution and safety when meeting strangers from dating apps, highlighting how easily a search for companionship can turn deadly. The police, meanwhile, combed through Latunski's residence, collecting evidence and interviewing anyone who might have encountered him. Old stories of men fleeing his home in chains resurfaced, fueling national headlines. Man escapes basement of alleged cannibal. Torture basement discovered in Michigan. Grindr horror, the Christmas cannibal. For Kevin Bacon's family, the media circus was both a chance to honor Kevin's life, and a bitter reminder that the focus was now on the monster who took it away. A vigil in Swartz Creek drew dozens of mourners. Candlelight illuminated the faces of those determined to keep Kevin's memory alive. Armed with the evidence from the scene and Latunski's own confession, prosecutors charged him with open murder. In Michigan, this encompasses both first and second-degree murder, leaving it to the courts to decide the precise severity. They also charged him with mutilation of a body. From the outset, Latunski's defense team pursued an insanity plea. They argued that his documented mental illnesses were so severe that he could not be held fully responsible for his actions. Public defender Doug Corwin, who would later speak about the case, emphasized that the aim wasn't immediate freedom, but rather a secure psychiatric facility where Latunski could be treated. However, after several competency hearings, Latunski was deemed fit to stand trial, meaning he understood the charges and could participate in his defense. This was a critical turning point. The question shifted from, is he competent, to, should he be found not guilty by reason of insanity? Psychiatrists and psychologists weighed in, debating the nuances of Latunski's mental state. Was he actively delusional the night of Kevin's murder, or was he aware his actions were wrong? Expert testimonies flew back and forth, each more harrowing than the last. Ultimately, Latunski stunned the court by pleading guilty to his crimes. The insanity question, however, didn't vanish. A judge needed to decide if the guilty plea would stand, or if an insanity verdict would be applied. In the end, the judge found that Latunski's actions met the criteria for first-degree murder: premeditation, deliberation, and intent. This sealed his fate: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. In the months following the trial, the chilling account of Kevin Bacon's murder left a lasting impact on the local community and on the discourse around mental health, the criminal justice system, and online dating safety. Kevin's family and friends continue to honor his life, refusing to let his memory be overshadowed by the horrific manner in which it ended. Meanwhile, Mark Latunski began serving his life sentence. His case serves as a grim reminder that repeated red flags, previous escaped victims, documented mental health crises, and run-ins with the law, somehow never coalesced into adequate intervention. Advocacy groups stress the importance of thorough background checks, open communication, and the buddy system when meeting strangers from any dating platform. The Kevin Bacon tragedy stands as a tragic example of how the search for companionship can turn lethal if one is unfortunate enough to encounter a predator. Now that we've delved into the details of this horrifying case, many viewers might wonder, how can we protect ourselves? How can we advocate for better mental health intervention? And how do we honor someone like Kevin Bacon, who was simply looking for connection during the holidays? Mental health advocacy. Society has a responsibility to provide avenues for people like Mark Latunski to get consistent, supervised care. When individuals miss medication or therapy appointments, the system should have better checks in place. Online safety. Always practice caution when meeting strangers. Share details of your whereabouts with friends or family. Meet in public first if possible, and trust your instincts if something feels off. Honoring Kevin Bacon. Kevin was more than a victim. He was a beloved son, brother, and friend. In remembering him, we keep alive a spark of compassion that stands against the darkness of this tragedy. Kevin Bacon's story isn't just about one life cut short. It's about every person who has ever felt lonely around the holidays, or turned to a dating app in search of connection. It underscores our collective need for vigilance in mental health services, criminal background flags, and community support systems. And perhaps it reminds us to hold our loved ones closer, especially during the holidays. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a tragic case that shook an entire community. As disturbing as these events are, we hope this deeper look fosters a conversation about mental health, the justice system, and how we can look out for one another, on and off dating apps. Remember Kevin Bacon not as a victim, but as a bright soul who deserved a life full of hope, success, and love. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, or if you are worried about a potentially dangerous situation, please reach out to mental health hotlines or contact local authorities. Help is available.